There I was, standing in the corridor, surrounded by people, but feeling all alone, even amidst the hum of voices swirling around me. It was my first time at a startup community coding bootcamp. And despite my bright smile and the brief introductions upon arrival, I may as well have been invisible. As the only female in the room, a thought began to worm its way into my mind. Am I really meant to be here? I wondered. And while the tech startup scene has changed over the years, my experience is unfortunately not uncommon. Even as I have spoken to other women in tech, many of us seem to have had these moments where we found ourselves in a sea of people and yet completely isolated. We are there, we are present, and yet we are unseen. Over the past decade, I've come to the realization that what is invisible in technology is what will create transformation and innovation in the new era. With the rise of leaders that have traditionally what's been described as feminine leadership traits. The invisible advantage is how feminine leadership will usher in a new era of innovation as technology embraces a more diverse and inclusive approach. You know as well as I do that some of the key leadership skills include effective decision-making, establishing trust, productive working relationships, clear communication, problem-solving, and the ability to mentor and motivate teams. And without lending myself to tropes and stereotypes, research has shown that women leaders bring a different lens and flavor of leadership. According to McKinsey, there's a strong correlation between gender diversity, better organizational health, and better business performance. Drawing on well-known research in behavioral psychology, they identified 9 positive leadership behaviors that are typically displayed by leaders in companies. And they found that men and women exhibit these behaviors with different and varying frequencies. Typically, female leaders use 5 of these leadership behaviors more often than their male counterparts. These are people development, expressing expectations and rewarding success, role modeling, inspiration, and participative decision-making. Men and women equally apply intellectual stimulation and efficient communication, and men more often apply individualistic decision-making as well as control and corrective action. By analyzing the impact of each leadership behavior on the different dimensions of organizational performance and comparing how often these behaviors were showing up in male and female leaders, they were able to identify the contribution that men and women are likely to make to organizational performance. It turns out that women, through their leadership behavior, help to improve performance by reinforcing vision, motivation, accountability, leadership, work environment, and values. Ultimately, organizational performance requires this diversity of leadership styles. It turns out that companies with more women in leadership positions had better results, especially in work environment and values, in accountability, in motivation, and in innovation. So that means that in addition to, just having diversity for the sake of diversity, companies have a vested interest in bringing in women into roles of leadership, because It also turns out that the leadership styles more frequently used by women are also considered to be the most effective in addressing the global challenges of the future. So again, McKinsey asked a panel of top executives to identify which of the 9 leadership behaviors would be most effective in addressing the challenges of the future. 4 behaviors emerged as being of particular importance for organizational performance. And these turned out to be intellectual stimulation, inspiration, participative decision-making, and expectations and rewards. Those should sound familiar. And it turns out that women more frequently use 3 of these types of behavior, as I mentioned earlier. And so what was interesting as well is that 70% of the leaders who rated these 4 top items also said that their company, that the current leadership in their company actually lacked some of these behaviors. So I do want to celebrate and acknowledge the many leaders who do bring a lot of masculine energy to the fore. However, I think it's important to also acknowledge that there are many values that have been hidden or downplayed in the business world and even in technology, where as women, we've had to bring a lot more energy to the work, masculine energy to the workplace in order to succeed. But as it turns out, some of these more feminine leadership traits, I think will help to not just complement, but actually synergize the strengths of leadership to take us to the next level. Diversity of leadership styles matters for performance. During this time of pandemic, Deloitte has noticed several workplace trends, including the need for collaboration to minimize the disruption that's happening from, the loss of physical assets and the attachment that we have, to our offices, our desks, our office chairs. And it also turns out that employee wellness and engagement have become leading priorities. I guess not least of all because of the various health protocols that companies are having to put in place during this time of pandemic. It also means that to effectively navigate the changing landscape of the new normal, leaders need vision and resilience, compassion and adaptability. And even before COVID-19, management guru Peter Drucker called this the era of the 3 C's: accelerated change, overwhelming complexity, and tremendous competition. And this is where leadership is shining through. We are seeing the incredible power of female leaders stepping up and standing out because of their empathy, humility, communication, and collaboration. For another example of our communication and collaboration, Finland's female prime minister, who is also the youngest head of government in the world, took what's been called an extraordinary path in successfully communicating to people by involving social media influencers to help counter fake news and disinformation about the virus. And therefore, I believe that the future of technology innovation will come from this mix of ideas that women bring to the table and a greater sense of more focused and efficient discussions as we bring more diversity. And I think there's, as we involve more women, we'll actually be able to develop more products and services for which women are a key demographic. This is how including the previously invisible demographic of women leaders will result in widespread innovation. I'm really excited about the future of technology. We really are on the cusp of one of the most innovative eras of technology. I think even with the pandemic, with the reshifting of priorities, I think we are poised to solve some of the greatest challenges that we face. And to get there, we will need leaders with vision, with influence, leaders with leadership presence, leaders who walk the talk, leaders who engage in the process, who are able to connect. And as technology companies, we need more women in leadership to increase the odds of success by embracing the power of diversity and inclusion. Diversity isn't just a nice ideal. It's a key ingredient for success. Because of remote teams, we will need better communication and collaboration. Having enough differences and working to strengths is what makes teams great. But the truth is, opposites don't just attract, they also attack. Diversity doesn't always equal success. It requires great leadership to make the most of the differences that arise. Inclusive innovation, diversity, is the hotbed of future innovation. Women shouldn't just be included in leadership to fill a quota, but because women are competent, qualified, and there is a distinct bottom line advantage. Women want a seat at the table because of the value that they bring. The data shows the economic benefit to having diverse teams in a multipolar world to create competitive advantage. And of the leadership traits that women demonstrate more often, it's not that men don't demonstrate these leadership behaviors either. I believe what we need is a more balanced model of leadership. The key is to demonstrate the right leadership behaviors at the right time. I believe that all of these leadership traits are required for effective, balanced leadership. That one day we'll no longer just call them feminine or masculine leadership traits, but just leadership qualities that all great leaders can embody, regardless of gender, industry, or background. Because empowered women can empower men, and we know that empowered men do empower women. In conclusion, my vision is that we will tap into the invisible advantage of feminine leadership that will unlock and usher in a new era of innovation. And in the words of Sheryl Sandberg, in the future, there will be no women leaders. There will just be leaders. Thank you.